Hi everyone, welcome to our first IM1 video. We're going to be going over skills 1 and 2 today. Those should be on your skills list. But before we get into that, we're going to start defining some terms and some phrases we may not have seen before, or just review them if we already have seen them. Before I even get into these terms, I want to go over the difference between expression and equation. So an expression, we're going to compare these. An expression has no equal sign. That's the quickest way to say it. So no equal sign. So that might look like 4x plus 3, negative 3x plus 4x. Any expression, any list of terms, signs, operations with no equal sign. And then of course an equation has an equal sign. So that's the quick, simple difference between those two. Okay, so let's define some terms that'll help us with this section. First is terms. So I'm sure we've used this word and seen this word a ton, but let's actually define what that means. So a term is each, we can think of it as each piece. So each piece in an expression or an equation. Okay, and we'll practice defining those in the expressions below. Okay, the next one is our coefficients. A lot of students get mixed up on these, and that's okay. We will practice on this. Coefficients are the numbers in front of the variable. It's actually the number or the sign that's multiplied by the variable. Okay, that's why it's right in front. All right, the next one, to simplify. So we're going to now talk about the difference between simplify and solve. Simplify just means to combine like terms. That's it. Combine like terms. We are simplifying an expression. We're not solving anything. So we shouldn't have any equal signs, and our answers will still look like expressions usually. And then to solve, so if we are solving an equation, that means we are isolating the variable. And really what we're doing is we're finding out what is x equal, what is y equal. We're finding the value of that variable. Okay, so first we will practice with our terms and coefficients. So all we're going to do is list the terms and coefficients from each expression. Okay, so let's start with the first one. Let's do terms in blue, and we will do coefficients in this magenta color. So terms, we've got 1, I'm going to put commas in between, 9n, that's a whole term, positive n, and negative 9. So remember to always put the symbol or the sign, negative or positive, in front of these terms. And then the coefficients, similarly, if there's ever a negative or positive, make sure to include them. So the coefficients, remember, are only in front of the variables. So we've got 9, and if we don't have a number and it's positive, that just means 1. So those are our coefficients. That's it. All right, next one. Again, blue, let's do terms. So my term is negative 3x, the whole term, and 4x. So I've got 2 terms here. And then our coefficients are going to be the numbers and the sign in front of our variables. So negative 3 is one coefficient, and positive 4 is another. Okay, let's try 2 more. If you are watching this and taking notes, go ahead and pause this, identify the terms and coefficients for these 2, and then we will come back once you unpause me. Okay, so assuming you paused or you've already moved ahead, let's go through the terms, 5n and negative 3n, and then our coefficients are positive 5 and negative 3. Okay, and then last one we have here are terms. We've got 4 terms here, x, 5, 6x, and we can list 5 again, or you can just list it once. I would probably just list it once. That's my preference. Okay, and then our coefficients are going to be, again, there's no number in front of x. That's like multiplying it by 1. So that's my first coefficient, and this is a positive 6. So those are my coefficients. Okay, so now that we've kind of taken a look at these terms, what the numbers in front of them mean, let's start combining them. So first we'll do some simple ones, and then we will try with some distribution. Okay, so we've got a 9a and 5a. I always like to think of our variables as actual objects. So let's say I have 9 boxes and I have 5 boxes. Well, if I add them together, now I have 14 boxes. So this is going to be 14a. Okay, the next one. So let's look at what terms I have that are common. I don't have an n in all of these terms. So what I'm going to do is underline my terms with n, and then I also have numbers, just numbers with no variable. Those I'm going to underline with this magenta color. So those coordinating colors are what I can combine. Let's start with the blue. Negative 4n and positive 6. So positive 6 and a negative 4, that's positive 2. And remember, those were n's. Don't forget that variable. And then for the magenta, I've got a positive 1 and a positive 3. That's positive 4, so I'm going to put a plus in between. Notice I'm not combining these terms because one has a variable n and one does not. Those are not like terms, and so they do not join together. Okay, these ones are the same, but we are just distributing first. Remember, you always have to follow PEMDAS, and what that means is you have to distribute if necessary. So in this problem, I see a number being multiplied by this variable and this number. So what I'm going to do is take this entire negative 7, that's the only number that's being multiplied, and I'm going to distribute, okay? Don't forget this little negative 7 out here. So this negative 7 stays. And then what I'm going to do is multiply. So I've got a negative 7 and a positive 7. That's negative 49a. Okay. And then negative 7 times negative 2 is positive 14. Notice I always paid attention to this negative and if there was a negative in here. Negative times negative, positive. Okay, so now I'm at the step where I can combine like terms. I've got a number, a variable term, and another number. So that variable term's not going to change. I can't combine them with any friends, but I can combine that negative 7 and the positive 14. So 14 and negative 7 is positive 7, and then I still have negative 49a. That's my answer right there. You can also write negative 49a first. It's up to you. All right, last one for simplifying. Again, we need to distribute just this negative 8. This negative 6 is just being added on, so this negative 6 is going to stay out here. So let's distribute. Negative 8 times positive 7. Okay, and then we're going to do negative 8 and a positive 8. All right, so first I'm going to have a negative, and it's going to be an m, and then I'm also going to have a negative, okay? So this is 56 when I multiply these two, and this is 64 when I multiply these two, okay? Again, I have a number, a variable term, and another number. So I cannot combine negative 56m with anything. He's going to stay. And then if I combine negative 6 and negative 64, I've got negative 70. That's my final answer, okay? So even when you are writing your answers, sometimes they still look like expressions. That's okay. That is the answer. All right, now we are moving on into solving equations. So quickly, we are going to change scenery, and we're just going to go over our steps for solving equations real quick, just so we remember, and then we are going to practice those problems. Okie dokie. So the first step when we solve an equation, sorry guys, let me move my paper around. So the first step when we solve an equation is to distribute, if necessary. We may not always have to. So distribute if necessary, okay? Then after we do that, we need to combine like terms. And we've already practiced doing that, combine like terms. We may not always need to, but always do it if you have to. Okay, number 3. So here is a little tricky step. Sometimes we have a variable on both sides of the equation. So that's what we're going to tackle next. We are going to add or subtract so that the variable, is on, one side of the equals. Okay, this isn't always true for an equation, but sometimes we do have them on both sides. So if so, refer to step 3. Okay, step 4. These 2 steps are going to be for isolating the variable. Isolate, and that really just means solve for the variable, okay? So the first thing you're going to do is undo any addition or subtraction. Undo addition or subtraction. And then after that's all done, the last step you should be doing is undoing any multiplication, and division. Okay, so these are kind of generic when we don't have an actual equation in front of us, but make sure you write these down so that way when you're solving your equation and you get stuck, you can refer to these steps. Maybe you're here, you can look and see what should go next. Maybe you're down here, but these are really helpful if you ever get stuck. Okay, so now that we've gone over those steps, we are going to try them out. All right, so we're starting simple. We'll get into some more complicated ones. We are going to solve. So in all of these equations, that just means I want to isolate the variable. The variable here is a. So I don't see any distribution that needs to happen. There's no variables and parentheses being multiplied. But what I do see is some terms that be combined. That's step 2. So I'm going to combine a negative 2a and a positive 3a. Negative 2 and positive 3. That's a positive 1a. I'm just going to write it so you can see that I combine those terms. We don't always need to write that 1. And we're going to bring down that 8. Okay, so now I've combined like terms. The next is to add or subtract so the variables on the same side. I only have the variable on one side, so I can skip step number 3. Step number 4, undo any addition or subtraction. I don't have any. So then the very last step is to undo any multiplication or division. Just so you can see the step, I want to show you guys, this is 1 times a. So if I wanted to undo 1 times a, I would divide by 1. Now obviously that's not going to change my number, but I just wanted you guys to see that step. So I know a is equal to 8. Okay, let's try another one. Negative 3n plus 3n equals 6. So if I combine like terms, because there's no distribution, negative 3 and positive 3 is 0, n equals 6, okay? And now we get into another type of solution. So the first solution was one solution. So I'm going to write that in pink. So that's one solution, okay? Because it's a equals 8. That's the only solution. It's just 1. All right. This problem, we are going to have a different kind of solution. So let's finish this out. 0 times a number equals 6. Well, that's just like saying 0 equals 6. Well, is that true? Does 0 equal 6? No, it doesn't. So I'm going to put a cross through that. So that is not true. Not true. That means there is no solution to this problem. So this is called no solution. There's no answer. There's no number that you could substitute in for n to make this true. All right, so we've now seen 2 kinds of solutions. There's one more, and you might see it in the next few problems. Okay, now we've got some distribution. So let's try these out. Let's start with this one right here. So we're going to distribute first. All right, make sure you distribute the negative 3. So negative 3 times 8m. Okay, that's going to give me negative 24m, and then negative 3 times negative 1 is positive 3. Okay, so now I've got to combine like terms if I can. There are no like terms, so I'm good so far. And I only have a variable on one side. Okay, so the next thing to do is undo any addition or subtraction. I see addition right here, so let's undo that, or do the opposite operation. Right? So now I've got negative 24m on the left, and now I've got negative 120 on the right side. Okay? So if I divide both sides, So now I'm undoing multiplication, negative 24. So I undid this, or did the opposite operation. Then what I have left is m equals, if I do this in my calculator, I should get positive 5. Okay, so I followed through my steps. Once I finished one, I went on to the next. That's why our list is so important if you guys get stuck. I want you guys to pause the video if you can, write this problem down and try it out. And then once you come back, I will solve it for you. Okay, so I'm going to assume that you paused it if you needed to. Let's distribute first. So we've got negative 3 times 1, that's negative 3, and a negative 3 times negative 5n. That's positive 15n. And then don't forget to bring this down. All right, my next step says to combine like terms. I don't have any like terms on the same side of the equation, so we'll skip that. Number 3, get the variable on one side of the equation. That's done. Number 4, undo any addition or subtraction. So this is a good example of how I can undo this addition right here. So even though it's negative 3 plus, this is a negative 3. I want to do the opposite, so I'm going to add 3 to both sides of the equation. So I've got 15n equals, and then over here I've got negative 120. Okay, so then I'm going to undo 15 times n by dividing, and I should get n equals negative 8. So these are, again, both examples of one solution. M equals 5. 5 is the one answer. Same thing here. Negative 8 is the one answer. Okay? All right. 2 more. And again, while you're following through, make sure to write these down so you can follow along. I've got x minus 4 plus 4 equals x. Ooh, I've got some variables on both sides of the equation. Let's try this out. Okay, so first step, distribute. Don't need to. Second step, combine like terms. Ooh, okay, so I have a negative 4 and a positive 4 on the same side of the equation. So let's bring down this x. Negative 4 plus 4 is 0. Okay, and we don't really need to write that 0, so we can just write x equals x. And then my steps tell me to add or subtract, so the variable's on one side of the equation, right? So what we do here is we can either, a couple ways you can solve this. You can say minus x minus x. What's x minus x? That's just 0. And x minus x, that's 0. Now careful here, this isn't no solution. 0 does in fact equal 0. Always, no matter what. Same thing here, if you look at this step, if we didn't even finish this problem, this is always true for any number. Any number could work, right? So this is our last type of solution, and this is infinite solutions, or we could say all real numbers. So infinite solutions. That means any number works and all numbers work, so that's infinite solutions. Okay, great example. Let's try all of these steps together in one problem on this last number 15. Okay, so again, write it down, try it out. It's this problem right here in black, and then we will do it together if you needed to pause. All right, let's try this out. First, I see some distribution. So I'm going to rewrite everything in the problem, 4n minus 5, and then I'm going to distribute. This is negative 5 when I multiply these, and this is negative 30n when I multiply those. Don't forget this last, 5n. Next step, combine like terms, so only if it's on the same side of the equation. I see like terms right here, negative 30 and positive 5. So I'm going to rewrite everything in the equation. And then when I combine these, that's going to give me negative 25n. Okay. Next step, I need my variable on the same side of the equation. So I'm going to add 25n to both sides of the equation. Okay, so I've got, let's see, when I add these, I'm going to get 29n minus 5 equals negative 5. And then I'm going to undo addition or subtraction, so I'm going to do the opposite operation here, Remember, I want to isolate this variable. -5 plus +5, that's 0. Careful here, I still have a variable, so I'm not done yet. We are going to now undo this multiplication. This is 29 times m, so I'm going to divide by 29. And n equals, okay, so I can do 0 divided by 29. Don't mix it up with dividing by 0. So this is okay, I can do this division. This is just 0. 0 divided by a number is 0. This is not no solution. This is one solution. That is the answer, 0. Okay, so careful not to mix those up. We've got one solution that looks like this. We've got infinite solutions when I've got a number equals the same number, and then no solution when I've got a number equals something that's not equal or not true. Okay? Okay, so you guys will have a practice worksheet if you were in my class to try this out. And I want to just put up our steps for solving equations one more time if you guys didn't get that, so you can pause and copy these down. And there you are. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Bye-bye.